What will you do this week? Well, this week we're going to look at igneous rocks. So we're starting our little venture into the different rock types. And so there's three main rock types that we talk about in geology: igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Now in this class we're going to spend 2 modules talking about igneous rocks, although in this one we're going to definitely do a big overview of igneous rocks in general, and then we'll spend the rest of our time focusing on what are called plutonic igneous rocks. So an igneous rock is a rock that has cooled from molten rock. So once we have a molten material and then it cools and crystallizes, it now becomes an igneous rock. But we separate those into 2 groups. There's a group that cools inside the earth. It never makes it to the surface. And then there's a group that actually makes it to the surface of the earth and flows out onto the surface. The stuff that's inside the earth we refer to as either intrusive or plutonic. So you'll hear both those terms to describe the rocks that cool and crystallize inside the earth. And then the ones that cool and crystallize on the surface, we use the term either extrusive igneous rocks or volcanic rocks. And so in this week's kind of lecture PowerPoint story, there's actually 2. And so this first one is really just to remind you, because we do have some plate tectonic knowledge that helps us understand where magma comes from, right? Molten rock that's inside the earth. And this is kind of a refresher and a way to link that information to plate tectonics and a little bit about how the mantle is moving. So basically, why do we get molten rock? And so that's what this one is about. And it's a little shorter. It's this rock formation PowerPoint. And then the main igneous rock PowerPoint is basically just going to go through the process of identifying igneous rocks. And in this PowerPoint, not really differentiating between intrusive and extrusive. We're covering everything. So we use composition, kind of what the rocks are made of. And with igneous rocks, luckily, we can kind of use their color to help us with that. And then we also use their texture, and usually that refers to the crystal size. And so it goes into more information about how we can link that information to plate tectonics, right? Because, plate tectonics plays a huge role in volcanism and magma formation and all that good stuff. So hopefully they'll start to connect to some information you already have. But that's what the lecture material is going to be over, and the quiz. And then the next 2 are going to focus, like we said, a little bit more about what we're calling plutonic igneous, so inside the earth. So granite. Granite is a igneous rock name, and it refers to a type of igneous rock that has cooled and crystallized inside the earth. Now today, of course, it's exposed at the surface in places, and of course we use it for, bathroom countertops, kitchen countertops, and all that kind of stuff. So you've probably heard of it. So just an article that talks about granite and its uses. And then the video, your favorite Earth Revealed series, is going to focus on these intrusive types of rock. So it's going to talk more about the different shapes and sizes that can form inside the earth and things like that. So once again, kind of focusing on those plutonic igneous rocks. And then for the homework, we're going to do a little of both. And your best source of reference for that is to go to this online textbook that I linked here. It's also in the additional resources section. So you can go ahead and check that out and look at these sections here. It'll help you answer some of the questions here. Let's see if I can expand this one a little bit. So it's just a couple more questions that clarify some information. And so about magmas, some compositions, and we're using this, remember, to identify our igneous rocks. And some of the processes that occur in crystallization, which just means that the rocks are cooling into crystals and hardening into a rock. Some of the textures we see, and then using some of the names of specific igneous rocks to try to differentiate between the 2, and then some forms. These are also described in the video itself. So, but most of that information you can acquire from that online textbook that I linked to. And then for the lab, we're going to focus just on plutonic igneous rocks. So just going to focus on the rocks that are the magma that cools inside the earth and crystallizes, because in the following module, we will talk about volcanoes and volcanic rocks. And so the lecture will cover volcanoes, which obviously are formed from molten rock, and talk about more of the process that are occurring on the surface of the earth. And the lab will follow suit with that and talk more about volcanic rocks. So that's kind of how it's going to work for the next 2 weeks. And so hopefully that all made sense to you. And of course, if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to contact me. Have fun. Good luck.